Now, if you've joined any public match in the last year or so, you've no doubt noticed that at least one person in your team is running either a Torid or a Burston. How original. However, there are a few reasons for this, so in this video, I'll just be explaining the main ones. Let's start with my personal favorite between the two, the Torid. So, rolling with the Torid at base is pretty decent, but the reason everybody uses it is because of the incarnon form, which you can get by running the Circuit on Steel path when it's in rotation. If you didn't know, the incarnon form of weapon just makes it exponentially more powerful and just better overall. So the Torid Incarnon fires a long-range toxic beam of death, and you can unlock evolutions to the Incarnon by doing certain tasks, such as killing enemies with the Incarnon form, with the first and third evolutions being helpful or nearly essential to your build, and the second evolution being just usually quality of life. Now the Incarnon form only takes 3 body shots to activate, which is obviously helpful since the magazine is quite small on this weapon, being only a base of 5. With the second evolution, you can actually increase the base by like 9, I think, which is obviously fantastic, but you don't really need to. Now, on top of being a beam weapon in its incarnate form, it has a rated attack, so to be affecting the other enemies around you when you shoot as well, which immediately makes it quite a nice weapon. However, if you run it at base with no mods, you won't be killing any steel path enemies anytime soon. But why would you do that? So, slap on some status mods, some crit chance and crit damage mods, a Riven if it entices you, and an arcane of your choosing. Then you'll be able to bring this weapon to level cap super easily. I'll explain how. So, the best status effect to use on this weapon is actually Blast. Blast is made up of fire and ice mods, so any fire and ice mod will create Blast. Slap it on. Now, Blast actually got a rework quite a while back, so now when it procs, it detonates dealing 30% of base damage after 1.5 seconds. When an enemy reaches 10 stacks of Blast status or dies with it on, it triggers a large-scale explosion that deals 300% of base damage in a 5-meter radius, which can stagger enemies and trigger a chain reaction on other affected enemies. Now, this makes it one of the best stats effects in the entire game. So, throwing on Blast along with any base damage mod or arcane, some multi-shot, and crit chance and damage mods will allow this weapon to carry you through Steel Path with ease. Now, if you want to be doing even more damage, then you can slap on Corrosive as well, and do Blast and Corrosive. To make Corrosive, all you have to do is throw on an electricity mod since this weapon already has Toxin as its base. So, Corrosion is pretty simple, but very useful towards armored enemies. It temporarily degrades the armor of the enemy by 26% for 8 seconds. Each subsequent proc further reduces the armor by 6%, culminating in a total armor reduction of 80% at 10 stacks, which is max. However, you can reach a full 100% armor reduction, but you need 14 stacks. Unfortunately, the max is 10. To achieve 14 stacks, you need to either have a Warframe that does armor shred, which will then immediately make the need for Corrosive completely useless, or you can throw on 2 Tau Forged Emerald Shards to your Warframe, which will allow a max of 16 Corrosive procs, allowing for full armor shred. If you decide to use Blast and Corrosive build, you'll absolutely demolish Steel Path, and nothing will be a big problem for you. This is why most people run the Torid, because it's easy. It's not necessarily the best weapon, don't get it confused. It's simply easy. Easy to use, easy to build, easy to get. If you have a Riven for this weapon, it just makes it that much easier, which is why they sell for thousands of plat. And usually when it comes to a weapon like this, every build will be roughly the same, either Blast and Corrosive or Blast and Toxin with the primary Blight Arcane. This weapon is a natural S tier. It can be so overpowered. It can't be anything lower than S tier, or else you wouldn't see it as often as you more than likely do. With that said, the next most seen weapon is just as easy. The Burston, specifically once again, the incarnate form of the Burston, requires a bit more work than the Torid, but the build is just as easy. So, first off, its incarnate form has an insane magazine, but to get it incarnate you need to get 10 headshots. Not too hard to achieve, but a bit tedious in a high-paced mission, which is most missions. Its incarnate form adds a heat proc along with high crit chance and damage, and same as the Torid, evolutions 1 and 3 usually help the build and decide what you build it around, but the second evolution is quality of life. Now just like the Torid, base with no mods won't be getting you through a Steel Path anytime soon. But again, why would you do it? That makes no sense. So, you can run it with either Blast build and Primary Deadhead, but honestly it seems the best way to run this is with Primary Acuity. which removes all multi-shot but adds insane crit damage and crit chance. It seems the best way to utilize this build is with its near pinpoint accuracy for a headshot priority build, revolving around primary deadhead, primary cutie, and the status mods of your choosing. Personally, I run it with a viral and magnetic build with a Riven, but the Riven can be traded out for Rifle Elementalist for more status damage or Hammer Shot for more crit chance and status chance. Now this weapon is also naturally an S tier, because again, you wouldn't see it so much if it wasn't an S tier. And with just a simple build, you can cut through Steel Path with ease, and with a specialized build, you can go to level cap. These are why you'll likely see these weapons all the time. Is it fun to see? Not really. There's no variety, it makes it a bit boring. Are they fun to use? It depends on your playstyle. I personally like using them because you don't need to actually think too hard, just point and shoot, just as God intended. Now, these weapons are insanely easy to use, insanely easy to get, and they require no skill. The Rivens require hundreds, even thousands of plat. Most people probably won't sell a Riven for less than 300 plat, even if it's super shit, because of how in demand they are. So if you have a Riven, be sure to scam people for it. Now, with that being said, that is just about it. Hope you found this helpful. Until next time.
Subscribe to Sleepy Soul.